Hey everybody, this is Dan Stolberger back from Israel. Yeah, I got the beanie on. It's like cold, freezing up here in northern Idaho, at least in comparison to Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and Eilat, if you know what I mean. So anyhow, we are now back alive with YouTube videos. And so this is November 20th. We're going to look back over the last weekend of what's transpired in Israel. So let's take a look at our news bites. We start off with just kind of bullet statements as far as what's going on in the news, using primarily sources from Israel. So a new poll out, no big surprise here, but 70% of Israelis, you guessed it, oppose a Palestinian state. And then we have this whole episode with Saudi Arabia coming to the White House. And it's raised the question because it's the air superiority of Israel in the Middle East that's being called to question because the Saudis are purchasing upward to 50 F-35s. And the questions being asked is that could this deal shatter Israel's aerial dominance? We're hearing that the models are different, that Israel's models are still superior, but it is a head scratcher. Again, news bites. Israel says that half of the Israeli hostages, over half of them, were raped or molested in Gaza. And that's just what we know right now, because just as a reminder, if you follow the Holocaust, many of the Holocaust survivors could not reveal the depth of what they went through to their children. It was only after the grandchildren started asking the questions that they opened up. I think in the same way, all that transpired on October 7th, we're not going to know for quite some time, but this is shattering news anyhow to read it, that half of the hostages were either raped or molested in Gaza. And now we bounce up, I should say, to the north. Hezbollah, the reality is that they're still a threat, and they're actually slightly stronger than they were 30 days prior. And having just come back from Israel, the hot zone truly is the north at this point in time. There are IDF strikes daily in the north in Lebanon. No big surprise here that the so-called Trump's peace plan, this international force that's going to police Hamas. The King of Jordan recently said that no Muslim nation will be willing to commit troops to the ISF if they're required to confront Hamas in any way. And then last of our news bites, despite promised reforms, and this really is the bottom line here, if there's ever going to be a change in the Middle East, it's going to come through the children. It's going to come through things like textbooks. So despite promised reforms, the Palestinian Authority textbooks still teach anti-Semitic and anti-Israel messages. No change there. So don't expect there to be any change in the Middle East. This is a deep-rooted legacy inbred of hate. Our major articles this week, our first one is Israel's stance because of all that's transpired with the Security Council agreeing with Trump's plan and with the Saudis coming to the White House and under the guise of a potential normalization with Israel. There's some things that Israel wants to make clear. Israel Katz has said that when it comes to Gaza, Gaza will be demilitarized down to the last tunnel, and Hamas will be disarmed either by the IDF or the ISF, But the bottom line, it will happen. And then Katz goes on to say, regarding the Syria, because remember, Giuliani just made his way to the White House as well, former what? ISIS, terrorist sort of stuff. But Katz is making it clear that there will not be a full IDF withdrawal from the Golan Heights whatsoever. The IDF will remain on Mount Hermon, and there will be a buffer zone, we were just there to see that buffer zone on Maram Golan as we went out to the border itself. It's staggering to see how the borders have changed even on the Golan. But again, Katz writes that the IDF will remain in Mount Hermon and in the now what's referred to as the security zone. Amit Segal, a trusted writer. I glean a lot from him. He writes for JNS. He's made it clear. He gives a clear perspective of things. He's able to kind of cut through all the fog and haze and rhetoric. And so he says, I'm going to upset some ministers in my country, in Israel. He says the bottom line is this whole two-state solution stuff. Even though most Israelis oppose it, the reality, here's the catch, and you know it all too well, he says, any initiative to create a Palestinian state will die 1,000 deaths before it ever gets off the ground, because the Palestinians aren't anywhere near ready to run a state. And because Israel and its government and its security establishment and citizens will not allow the world to impose a Palestinian state on it. So whatever rhetoric comes out, the reality, don't really think that this is going to happen anytime soon. I think Trump's plan is to present something in such a way that the Saudis can go back to their people and really the Arabs and say, look, there is a plan for this, but the reality is ain't going to happen. Gideon Sa'ar, the foreign minister of Israel, he makes it cut and dry. He says establishing a Palestinian state would be the same as establishing a, quote, Hamas terror state. He said in his speech just last weekend, he says, there seems to be this obsession in Europe, and while we're dealing with the terrorist states in Lebanon and Gaza and Yemen, they're proposing that we establish a new Palestinian terrorist state besides what we're just going through in the heart of our small country. He said, once again, a Palestinian state in the West Bank would be a Hamas terrorist state. Once again, it ain't going to happen. And then, wow, this article, Bibi actually praises the United Nations. Again, in all of this haze and fog, on Tuesday, November 18th, Israeli authorities are praising the United Nations vote. Again, approving Trump's plan, approving Trump's concept of this international sort of police force for Gaza. Again, it depends on what you want to see in that report, but Israel is focusing in and making the statement saying that this agreement will lead to peace and prosperity because it insists on full demilitarization, disarmament, and de-radicalization of Gaza. Again, is this the perfect deal? No. Deals are rarely perfect, but for once it seems that the UN may have just endorsed a plan that very much might work in Israel's favor. We'll have to take a wait and see on that once again. And then in the midst of all this, Hamas wants to make sure they're clear, and they give a clarification. Hamas claims that it only agreed to the first phase of Trump's plan, which called for an end of the war and a release of all the hostages, alive and deceased, within 72 hours. That was on October 9th, 2025. Now, weeks have passed, and there's still 3 missing hostages that have not been given back. Although they're dead, we know that their bodies have not been given back. And so the terror group's leaders want to make it crystal clear that the remaining phases of the plan they never agreed to, which is what? The demilitarization and an establishment of a temporary international governing body in the Gaza Strip. And so they have rejected that UN Security Council resolution. It's 2803 in case you want to know. And basically, the only reason that they agreed to the first phase of Trump's plan was so that the war would actually end and they could do their best to maintain their rule, which they're doing, by the way. And make no doubt about it, they will attack the IDF. And so we're in the midst of seeing what's going to happen. Israel's not in a rush. Hamas's backs are against the wall, but there will not be a two-state solution, and Hamas will be eradicated. And then an article that I just simply wrote, Truth Spoken here. The UN resolution that we're referring to, even with the backing of the United Nations Security Council, is really political theater rather than an operational blueprint. An international force that won't confront Hamas, King of Jordan said that, and a ceasefire that Hamas refuses to uphold cannot deliver the security that its authors promise. Unless Hamas is forcibly disarmed, something only Israel has demonstrated both the will and the capacity to do, this 20-point plan will remain precisely where it stands today, little more than an illusion, a pipe dream. And the Western world will continue to live in the shadow of the Hamas threat. Palestinian Media Watch. Again, earlier this week, there was at least 2 terrorists. They carried out a car ramming and a stabbing attack at Gush Etzion in the junction just south of Bethlehem, murdering 1, and now it's 2, and injuring 3 Israelis. And then this was a report. An official Palestinian Authority media report presented the story as the killing of innocent Palestinian young men. Not even one outlet mentioned that the terrorists had just committed murders. Yeah. All right. My son is a diehard Dolphin fan, and so I had to include this article because Tua Tagovailoa, he's the quarterback of the Dolphins, told reporters on Sunday, they just played a game in Madrid, that he would like to play an NFL International Series game in, ready for this, in all places, Jerusalem. Yeah. The Dolphins beat the Commanders 16-13 in Madrid, and Tua said he first mentioned when he was asked, where would you like to play an international game against? He said, well, my first choice would be Hawaii, but that's not international. That's kind of where he's from. But then he added that my dream, and his words were, shoot, it would be pretty cool to play in Jerusalem. I don't know if that's possible, but that would be sick. And so, again, stay tuned. I told my son, if the Dolphins are playing in Jerusalem, I'll get his tickets. Glenn Beck, again, he reveals that the alliance that everybody mocked him for in terms of conspiracy theories, he made the statement a couple years ago that Islamists, communists, anarchists, and radical revolutionaries are working together to destabilize the West, just like Iran did in 1979. Europe is now seeing it, England is admitting it, and Glenn Beck now warns America is next if we do nothing and we stay silent. Take a look at New York City. Oh my. And then last up, we had the opportunity to spend some time with Amir Tsarfati at Connect, good friend of our ministry. We support him. We get great information from his Telegram page. He just wrote this, and I want to share it with you in closing. He says, to the remnant around the world, God-fearing, Bible-believing, Israel-loving, truth-proclaiming saints, you may be few in numbers, you may not hold many academic degrees or command millions of followers online, yet each one of you is a living expression of God's holy nation. We were never meant to be the majority in the world. We are not of this world, and this world will neither love nor willingly accept us. Stand firm, be encouraged. God's at work. We're not defeated. We are more than conquerors. Do not let social media or public pressure shake your resolve to always stand on God's side. He's the God of Israel. He will not be mocked. He will not allow anyone to touch the apple of his eye, and at least without consequence. Remain on your knees in prayer, on your feet in courage, and stay in the ring fighting and on the track running. Finish strong. And then he goes on to say, I love you deeply. You're the heroes of my world. I see you. I hear you. I read your messages. I feel your pain and your frustration with the direction that this world is going. And then he quotes Hebrews 10, where he says, and let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Amen and amen. Stay strong. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. God bless you all. Amen.